they have to make the playoffs first. And you
Yeah.
mentioned, they might get there just because of the poor teams behind them. And those are the teams I kind of want to talk about at this point. At this time last week, we were really kind of only focusing on the Reds. And all of a sudden, we're focusing on 4 teams. 3 of these teams fucking sold at the trade deadline. 2 of them to the Mets. And now I'm watching Giants Cardinals games and not even being sure who to root for. I'm watching Diamondbacks games who gave up their 2 best hitters other than Ketel Marte. And then obviously the Reds, they had been playing like, that's the other annoying thing. The Mets could have buried the Reds this weekend because the Reds have been playing like shit. Yeah. And they wind up losing 2 or 3. They lose the season series, so that will come back into play if the Reds can somehow catch up to the Mets, which is still a tall task. But all 4 of these teams are within 4 to 4.5 games. They are, other than the Reds, have all been playing very well recently. Most notably the Giants, until they lost the last 2 games this weekend. To kind of break it down, Mets went 3-3 against the Diamondbacks. So if they wind up tied, that tiebreaker is going to come down to which team did better against their own division, which I don't think that makes any sense in the world why your record against your division affects the tiebreaker against a team in a different division. But that's how it is. They lost this season series to the Reds, but they did win the season series against the Giants and the Cardinals. Are any of these teams actually a threat, in your opinion? If so, which one is it? Or if it's a no for all of them, why not?
I will just bring up one team just because I know that it would make Mets fans' hearts hurt the most, and that's the Giants. Just because that team is absolutely loaded with ex-Mets. It's loaded with ex-Mets, including Drew Gilbert, who they traded, Buto, who they traded, and Gilbert's been playing well. Buto's been solid. He's been one of their back-end relievers. Lucchese's been one of their back-end relievers. Wilmer Flores, Dom Smith. I mean, that team is just crazy. It's just loaded with ex-Mets. So, like, in like a super LOL Mets world, that would be the team that really ends up at least making it interesting, like down the stretch. That's probably not going to happen. Like, I don't think they have enough pitching to make it happen. And along the other teams, like the Cardinals, D-backs, again, those are teams that sold. I mean, the D-backs are still actually scoring runs. They still have a pretty good top of the lineup. Their 1-2-3 is still pretty darn good. Again, but I think they're a little short on the pitching side. I mean, they traded Merrill Kelly, who was their best starter. Gallen's been better recently, but I don't see how they have enough pitching. I would say the same thing about the Cardinals. I don't think they have a ton of good pitching. I don't think they have a very good bullpen. They have a pretty good top of the lineup. I would say probably, I think the best team of the group is really the Reds. And we just saw that. I mean, they have a lot of good young talent in the lineup. And we saw Hunter Green obviously is an ace. Brady Singer has been pitching pretty well this year too. They do have a couple of decent bullpen arms. So I think if we're not going for the Giants because of the ex-Mets LOL type situation, I think the Reds are probably the best talent of that group. But I just think 4 games in 19, it's tough. And like, I was going over who each team is playing, and each team has a couple of really tough series. The rest of the year, there's no cakewalks in their last 18, 19, 20 games for any of these teams. So even the Mets, I mean, the Mets, the 2 teams are losing record that they play are the Nationals and the Marlins, and
the Marlins won their last series against the Mets.
Exactly. And it happens to be the Marlins, the last series of the year. And I don't think I need to tell any Mets fans about how I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about it because of how badly that can end. So preferably the Mets would have it all wrapped up before they play the Marlins in that last series.
Yeah, I I don't need to go down the rabbit hole again, but in last Monday's pod, I went on a big tangent about the 2008 Mets losing those series splitting a series to the Cubs and losing to the Marlins the last week. And it still bothers me. And I was 17 when that happened. I am 34 now, and it still bothers me. But yeah, I've done the math. So all these teams except for the Cardinals have played one extra game than the Mets, so I think they only have 18 games left, and they're slightly further back than everybody else is. If the Mets go 9-10 over the last 10 games, which I don't think is really acceptable, but it's possible based on how they've played lately. If they go 9-10, these other teams would have to go, I believe, 13-6 to tie the Mets. This would get all these teams to 85 wins. The Reds, if they could do that, they would make the playoffs, and the Mets would lose. All the other teams would lose on the tiebreaker, so they'd really have to actually go 14-5. Yeah. And that's if the Mets go one game under 500 the rest of the way. If the Mets do any better than that, it's very, very unlikely these teams are going to catch them. And even if they do go 9-10, the Reds haven't played a stretch of baseball that well at really any point this year. The Giants just won like 11 of 10 before they lost games this weekend, which would mean they would have to really have an absurd clip over their last 30 some odd games to catch them, which again, these other teams other than the Reds sold for a reason. They're not very good. If the Mets were playing remotely like slightly above average baseball, we would not be talking about this at all. This is really like a situation of none of these teams, in my opinion, and God forbid I have to clip this in 2 to 3 weeks, none of these teams are good enough to take this from the Mets. It's just, will the Mets give it away to one of them? And I, as annoyed as I am this weekend, and I have been for several months at this point, like, I'm annoyed more that it's still a conversation. It's still unlikely that will happen, at least in my opinion.
No, I agree. And to that point, I think had the Mets just played a little bit better, we would be having the conversation of, hey, this 4-game series against the Phillies, they still have a chance to go for the division. And obviously, that's what everyone would prefer to be talking about. And it wouldn't be that far off. The Mets would just have picked one up against the Reds and picked up one last week, and they'd be right there with a chance at the division. Obviously, they'd have to do very well in the series, but still, that is a conversation you kind of thought we might be into. And to your other point, I just, for the Mets to go worse than like 9-10, I think their offense is still just good enough for them not to completely have a bad spell like they did early in this year. Like when they did that earlier this year, Juan Soto was not playing like MVP Juan Soto like he is right now. Lindor's playing really well right now. Alonso just started clicking again. Nimmo's actually playing pretty well. Marte, outside of big spots, is hitting well. Brett Beatty looks like he's a starting major league third baseman now, finally. So I just don't think they're in that spot where they're going to go something crazy like 5-14 so that it opens a door for any of these other teams to get one of those spots without having like a really good run like you were talking about with the math. And I think they have just enough. And I think honestly, now that they have, McClain looks like a legit top of the rotation starter, so he can be their stopper. I think Tom is going to be competitive in all of his starts. Sprout will have to see more to know, but I that gives you two guys that you're pretty confident in the rotation. And just by the law of averages, at some point you've got to think that Peterson or Manaea are going to have a couple of good starts down the stretch. And Holmes has been more competitive lately. I guess that's the best way to put it with Holmes. Is it feels like for at least 4 to 5 innings that Holmes is keeping you in games. So I'm not optimistic. I'm just I think reality is that it would be really tough for any of these teams to catch the Mets, and that would include them playing incredibly bad. And they've just been really mediocre for a long while. And mediocre right now would be good enough to get them into the playoffs.